We're probably going to put a little button on what Kyler Murray posted yesterday across the social channels, what he meant by nonsense. Is he talking about the organization? Is he talking about us, the media? What is he talking about? Cap space. Where can the Arizona Cardinals create some? Because they're tied to some premier free agents. They've got to go out there and retain some guys. How can they do it? They're pretty close against the number that's projected. New league year begins, and we'll get into the opponents. The Arizona Cardinals are going to take a bit of a doozy as far as the home slate's
A
concerned.
barn
Alex.
burner, if we may. Yeah, the Cardinals had an easy road, comparatively speaking, the last 2 seasons with who their opponents were. Fun's over. Fun's over, especially at home.
Let's put a button on this. Kyler Murray made his first, he broke his silence on social media in regards to the Arizona Cardinals, in regards to the noise. We've got it up on our YouTube. You can see that. What he mentioned was nonsense. He said all this nonsense is what I'm not about. Never have been, never will be. I'm curious what he meant by that, because I think he means, just the 3-ring circus that was created from, pointing out that he doesn't follow the Cardinals. I still don't know if he ever did or not, and that he scrubbed social media channels of anything of Cardinals related content, or of his family, or of his dog, or of anything for that matter. He had two pictures up on there, and one was of I think him as at Oklahoma, and the other was him in the Pro Bowl. So when he says nonsense, what does that say to you, Alex?
I mean, I think it's got to be directed at the media thinking that he's a bad leader, right? Or that he doesn't love his teammates. This whole thing, according to him, is nonsense. I think it's an all encapsulating word to kind of, from his side, show what he thinks about the media hubbub and everything. Listen, I don't know really if this was just putting a topper on the can so it doesn't, continue to spout out, or if he really means it or whatever. But at least for now, it shows him defending himself, saying, whatever you think I am is wrong. And a lot of the time we've talked about how we don't know what Kyler Murray's thinking on a day-to-day basis. We don't know, because he's not a loudmouth, abrasive guy. And this is just kind of exacerbating the fact that we're trying to guess when he's scraped his Instagram account and all that stuff. Like, I take him at face value at this point, because we have no reason not to.
Yeah. And I think I know what he means by the nonsense. I mean, he's a gamer. And I mean that beyond him sitting in his gaming chair and playing whatever the kids play and what he does for FaZe Clan. But he's a gamer as far as a football player. He's kind of just a jock. Just get the ball in my hands, just get the stick in my hands, and let's go out and let's play. Let's leave the talking, to everybody else. As far as the nonsense, the false report or the debunked report, from the flagship station that, he at halftime puts his earbuds in and calls his girlfriend. That's nonsense. That's just mudslinging, and it's not even, it's not true for the most part. From, Kyle Odegaard said it's not from an inside source. As far as what Chris Mortensen's saying is Kyle Murray feels like he's been scapegoated by the franchise. That seems like what he's pointing to as nonsense, when a guy who's usually tight-lipped, all these things are kind of coming out from who? Because, Kyler Murray's probably not saying it. Is it people from his camp? Is it people from his, is it his representatives? Kyler Murray himself, he's not about that nonsense. That's what I think he means. I think he means more of the media circus than really what's been going on between him and the organization, because I would just completely speculate and guess that between the conversations that he's probably had between himself and the organization, whether it's Steve Keim, Cliff King, position coaches, anybody, we've been pretty pleasant and probably cleared the air for the most part.
I would lend to agree with that as well. I mean, hopefully this is just something that is going to go away. Everything's going to be hunky dory Shangri-La Xanadu that we're moving forward from this. This is just an off-season spat, and it was more much ado about nothing and more of a miscommunication than anything. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
That, at the same token, this isn't nothing. This is a quarterback that is in prime position to cash in, to get a huge extension, who has probably more leverage than the past, 5, 6 quarterbacks coming off a rookie
yeah,
contract because of his multi-sport ability, because of where the organization was before him and where it is now. I think that Kyler Murray is in a position where the Arizona Cardinals have to go above and beyond any other organization and how they cater to their quarterback. Now, a lot of people think that's crazy, and that's you're going to enable this kid. But look, you have no other choice. You have to keep him in the as an Arizona Cardinal. And I'm saying, it as silly as it may seem, you get down on your knees, and you beg him to stay. You give him the money. Obviously, you have that ability, and you do what he's asked for. You go out there, you change your uniforms for God's sakes, and you go out there, and the biggest indictment, in my opinion, as far as Steve Keim, the general manager, has been his inability to surround Kyler Murray with playmakers necessary for him to really thrive at the NFL level.
yeah, and it's interesting. Like, we get into a lot of this on Twitter. Just because you can list offensive players doesn't mean that they're good players and that they're going to elevate. I know you can list a roster of players that Steve Keim has brought in, but it's more of an indictment through the draft where he just misses everywhere.
Yeah.
Especially on offense. Like, what has he done? And you say, oh, well, Rondale Moore. Cool. List off somebody on the roster. Fantastic. Good for you. I'm glad you watch football. That doesn't mean that Rondale Moore did anything to better this offense last year. He had one broken play touchdown against Patrick Peterson, and that was it. And then he had 11 receptions for 60-plus yards with his Jarvis Landry line a handful of games later, and he was hurt the rest of the year. Like, I don't know. Oh, Rondale Moore. Cool. Awesome. You watch the Cardinals.
Look at the depth chart right now. It's Kyler
Murray
at quarterback.
I don't want to.
DeAndre Hopkins at your X wide receiver position.
Yep.
Maybe Rondale Moore at slot. But right now you have voids at running back, Z wide receiver, slot, tight end.
Tight end. Yeah. All of them, Johnny.
There's nobody. Like, they're going to have to completely rework this thing this offseason. And this is the offseason you have to cater to Kyler Murray. Otherwise, he's going to say, what are we doing here? What are we doing? Why is Cliff Kingsbury the head coach? Why was I the guy that you pivoted to after Josh Rosen in that disastrous 2018 season? Do you not want to put me in the best position possible to be successful? Go out there and get me some guys to throw to hand the ball off to. As you mentioned, I mean, Steve Keim, 1 for 10 maybe drafting wide receivers, 0 for 4, 0 for 5 drafting tight ends. He's had some success at the running back position. David Johnson, Andre Ellington, Chase Edmonds.
David Johnson had 18 months.
Yeah.
Now let me. It just dawned on me. I'm all about metaphors. I'm all about comparisons. You know who Steve Keim is? Steve Keim is a guy that doesn't study all semester and ends up getting a C+ or C and passes at the end of the semester. He just punts on the beginning of free agency. He punts on the draft and then trades later in the offseason and ends up getting a C+ and keeping his job and keeping his scholarship or whatever grades where you need above a 2.0. That's Steve Keim. And imagine what would happen if you studied a little bit and you actually were ahead of the curve. Instead of the, oh no, this is the Steve Keim special because he excremented the bed the whole offseason and then is able to rectify the situation a little bit with a couple names to keep the fan base placated, and then looking at where we are at the end of the season after another disappointment, like, oh, well, if they would have drafted well, maybe they would have had a roster where they didn't have to trade for everybody and sign everybody in the offseason. Yeah. This isn't negativity. I'm sorry for people that see me as negative most of the time, okay? If you want me to sugarcoat the atrocity that is Steve Keim, I won't. Because somebody needs to hold him accountable, and obviously his boss doesn't.
and we have new listeners every day. I can't swallow the idea of people thinking that we're in pro Keim camp here. I just
Yeah.
can't. I just can't. So when we have new listeners jumping on every day, we talk forward thinking about what this organization can do to get better, but we know that the Cardinals are handicapped by who's making the decisions in the offseason and the draft as far as free agents consider are
Now, let
go.
me ask you a question before we
Yeah.
pivot here. Right now, I am, and we could talk about this throughout the week, but I woke up this morning and I was on Twitter. I was reading a couple articles. They need to give Kyler Murray an extension tomorrow. Like, I don't know what we're waiting for here. Like, do you think that they need to pay him? Do you think that he deserves an extension at the end of next year?
Yeah, he does.
Okay, then what are we waiting for?
It's a good question because the Chiefs, when they re-signed Patrick Mahomes, I mean, this next upcoming season, like he hasn't been collecting, like he hasn't been absorbing most of their salary cap the last 2 seasons since he's signed that mega extension. That finally hits in this next offseason. He's also already restructured for the Chiefs to create more salary cap. So if Kyler Murray were to sign as an extension today, it would mean that it does that they're not going to just completely torpedo the Arizona Cardinals salary cap this season. It would likely be he would get paid what he's getting paid anyway on his rookie scale contract, and then you have that mega extension that would kick in after the 2023 season. That's probably what would happen. That's why I'm like, what is this all about? Like, does the organization really have any second thoughts about the offensive rookie of the year, number one overall pick, two-time Pro Bowler, who's done already more than probably any other drafted quarterback in this organization has ever done through 3 seasons time. It's unreal. Their ESPN says that a top free agent target, the Arizona Cardinals, would be his
Ooh.
best destination this offseason. But football, it might be over.